the fact is that I'm agreeing with you that there has been a demonization that we need to get our hands around in the way in which people are doing this understanding.
Okay, so you agree that we're demonizing kids?
We're demonizing we're demonizing white people for being born.
And are some of our students white people?
What?
Are some of our students white people?
Yes.
Okay, so we're demonizing white kids. Why don't you just say it?
We are using language that makes them feel less than for nothing that they are personally responsible for.
For my main audience that maybe hasn't heard about this yet, everything you're saying is probably not that shocking to them, because I think so many people have now seen this sort of woke thing infect so many schools and high schools and colleges and now virtually every institution and everything else. So all this is happening, and was there a moment where what was it in you that was like, I have to say something now? Because I think a lot of people, the question of the day is sort of what makes people stand up? Because I think we're watching a lot of people fold, and I'm glad to see that not only did you write the piece and got in touch with Bari, and I'm curious how that happened as well, but then are willing to do press after and really keep, walking through the fire on this thing.
Well, once it started to cascade, I began to feel a real sense of exhilaration and duty that I was doing the right thing. So that carried me through up into the present day. I wasn't sure when I started to ask what a white feeling was or ask these things in the chat, how it would play out. I hadn't planned it. It started something. My impulse to do those things initially was simply to provide those questions were genuine, but I asked them because I felt that students needed to see a teacher, an authority figure, model for them how free discourse is conducted. And I hadn't seen anyone do that before. And I felt that this was something that I could do. And as it started to cause all of this chaos around me, I realized, well, this is actually pretty important. Mm-hmm. And the more chaos was going on, the more I actually felt that it was important to pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so extraordinary because obviously the story of Bret Weinstein at Evergreen, and so much of my audience knows that story, of course, and we've heard so many versions of this. So then how did you get in touch with Bari, and how did this whole article get written and the whole piece there? Mm-hmm. The public part of this, not just fighting back internally, yeah.
Right, well, my contract, they offer a contract year to year. And so my current contract expires the end of August, so I had to sign the contract for the next year by April 15th. And part of the contingencies of that contract were that I attend restorative practices designed by the Office of Community Engagement to address the harm that I'd caused students of color and other students in the school. But they would not specify what those practices would be until after I signed. So I was in a bind there, so I found
incredible,
some legal representation through FAIR, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. I spoke with Bari, who's on the board of advisors, and she suggested that I write a piece about my experiences, and I wrote 5,000 words at first. I had a lot to say, and then we edited it down to something that was more digestible, and then I did another draft, and then she had some tweaks, and then the editing was very helpful. But those were all my words, and I'm really pleased with the effect it's had.
Right. So so you put the piece out, and then then the hate starts coming. You get support from some quarters, of course, but then the hate starts rolling in, and then what's the next thing that the school did? Because this is where it really starts kind of going off the rails.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, I got overwhelming support predictably through Bari's subscribers, sure, and through an email that I had placed there. But I was curious how the school was reacting. My contract, the article came out on the 13th. My contract I had to sign by the 15th. I hadn't gotten back to them yet. And then on the 14th, I believe I received a threat from someone within the school community. It was not a physical threat, but it was a threat to my livelihood, my well-being, and it was basically everything but. So, I reported the threat to the administration. I reported it to the head of school. And then they tried to use that as a pretext to keep me out of the school, to keep me from teaching in the school, saying that, well, maybe you feel unsafe because of this. And I said, no, actually, I don't feel unsafe. I'm merely bringing this to your attention, to something on your radar you should take care of. And then they tried to reframe this threat as an opinion. And they said they would poll the opinions of the other students and faculty to see if they felt safe with me in the building. And so when they came back to me and said, no, actually, your students don't want to be in your classes, so we need to keep you home. And in fact, we're going to take away all your classes.
Unbelievable. Okay.
So, they were indifferent to my claim that actually, if someone makes a threat, aren't they the ones that should be staying home?
Right. And
why is a teacher punished for what, another person did?
Yeah. Unfortunately, my lack of shock is just, well, not only because I know your story, but I mean, we know this story over and over again,
right.
Sort of false allegations, then gaslighting and reversing accusations and all of these things. Okay. So we're going to play this audio clip now. Can you just set up what happened between you and the head of the school to give a little context, and then we'll play it and then come back?
Sure. So the head of school, George Davison, sent a letter to the whole community saying that I had, in my article, I had misrepresented, the conditions at the school, that I had substantial omissions in there, and they reiterated their commitment to antiracism, and they offered me, they relayed to the school that they had offered me this chance to participate in a subcommittee of a committee that would be heavily supervised. So, as to sort of try to co-opt what I was saying. However, their claim that I had, misrepresented things or left omissions, I responded to that with my own letter, saying that, I actually had, in conversations with George, he had clearly acknowledged to me that he had grave doubts about the school's own policy, and that he specifically had said that there was a problem with demonizing whites at the school. So I released that letter publicly in response to his letter, and then he released a letter back saying that this was, in his words, I misquoted him. I attributed to him things he had never said nor would ever say in the press. My actions were unprofessional. So he was impugning my character and my veracity. So at that point, I felt I had no choice but to release, clips of the conversation, which I had recorded because I was worried that it might come up in an employment dispute.
Right. I mean, it's actually quite incredible because you did this like an absolute pro in terms of the emails back and forth and then doing this recording. And well, let's let the recording stand on its own. So let's throw to that.
Let me ask you something, George, because I think there's something very different about having a single experience where you make sense of it, right? And having a teacher, an authority figure, talk to you endlessly every year telling you that because you have whiteness, you are associated with evils, all these different evils. These are moral evils. It's not the same as taking like a physical thing because it doesn't affect your moral value. That's the problem.
The fact is that I'm agreeing with you that there has been a demonization that we need to get our hands around in the way in which people are doing this understanding.
Okay, so you agree that we're demonizing kids?
We're demonizing we're demonizing white people for being born.
And are some of our students white people?
What?
Are some of our students white people?
Yes.
Okay, so we're demonizing white kids. Why don't you just say it?
We are using language that makes them feel less than for nothing that they are personally responsible for.
Okay, so that clip is quite extraordinary because in essence, he's basically saying, yes, you're telling the truth.
Yes.
So you must have felt kind of good, I guess, at that point that you released it.
Yeah, I mean, if you back me up against a wall and you call me a liar, well, he left me no choice. I have a reputation that I have to protect, especially since I'll probably be looking for another job soon. Additionally, I want to make clear that the word demonization was his word. Mm-hmm. I never suggested it to him. That is, that's why I was actually quite shocked that he felt that way. And I was also shocked that he hadn't taken any action on it, because what does it mean if the head of school knows that students are being demonized for their race and does nothing except share it privately and saying publicly something completely different? So this was just, it was gratifying in a way, which is why I kind of said, thank you. But it was also really disturbing because nothing had been done or seemed would be planned to be done. He did make some mention about, they were going to have a meeting at the end of the year or something about it, but that seemed totally inappropriate to how serious the problem was.
Right. So to bring this all to now, actually, so there was a little confusion, I think, at first, whether you had been let go or exactly what had happened. So you are still employed by the school, but they're just not letting you teach. Is that correct?
That's right. As of now, I still have email access. I don't receive all of the communications. I'm not on all the distribution lists, as it turns out, but at this point, I still am. I still am connected to the school in that way. I have been asked to be on this task force, but I think I've said all I really need to say for them to work on it out themselves. Frankly, I don't think there's much I need to add to that.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about academia instead of nonstop yelling, check out our academia playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.